Two of the foundational practices of C3WP are writer's notebooks and sentence frames. So let's talk about how you can routinely integrate the two in a way that you can improve student argument writing. Writer's notebooks, let me open a slide presentation and we'll walk through it. So writer's notebooks are a really good way to get students just writing routinely, writing argument routinely, or you could use them for other types of writing as well. But what writer's notebooks help to do is to create a classroom culture of reading, writing, and thinking. And this works beautifully with Writing Standard 10, which states write routinely over extended time frames and shorter time frames for a range of tasks, purposes, and audience. So what we like students to do in C3WP is write daily, and that goes along with this notion of routine writing. So we like them to write daily. We like them to write in response to something, so in response to a text or texts, and keep it in a notebook. And there are some benefits and purposes for keeping all of these in a notebook. And these are the things that I'll be addressing, and then we'll revisit these questions later. And so, again, students should write routinely and engage in multiple types of writing. Notebook writing is typically very low stakes, and so students feel safe engaging in this writing and playing around with their thoughts in writing. And so there's that type of writing, which we call low stakes. And then also in the C3WP, there's scaffolded writing instruction, where you're actually teaching students how to make an argument move or an argument writing skill. Sometimes those will be recorded. That student writing will be recorded in notebooks. And then there's another type of writing that's not typically done in notebooks, but it's called writing on demand, and that's very high stakes. And that's like what your state test is. State test has students write on demand. So there's a prompt, there's a time frame. And what people often miss is that students won't just be able to write on demand. They won't be able to do high stakes writing well unless there's a lot of low stakes writing and some scaffolded writing instruction along the way. So our big takeaway here is that writing on demand skills build over time in an expertly crafted culture. And as the teacher, it's your task to expertly craft a culture of reading, writing, thinking in a routine fashion. And it's what you really need to understand is that low stakes and high stakes writing are equally as important. And so I like to think of it like this. So runners who are training for a marathon, they don't train for the marathon by running marathons. They do lots of other things. So if you're thinking, if you think of the marathon, running a marathon as writing on demand, which often seems like a marathon for our students and for us as we watch them do it, there's a lot that goes into training for a marathon. So there's diet and sleep. And from what I understand, marathon runners in training do a lot of short runs and longer runs. So these short runs are important as well. So that's the type of routine writing in notebooks that we're talking about. Those little short runs, so to speak, are really important to for our students to be able to work up to longer writing and also writing on demand. The other thing that a marathon runner has to do is see herself as a runner. And so writing in notebooks helps our kids see themselves as writers. And the number one mistake that schools typically make is not including lots and lots of low stakes writing opportunities for students. Too often we jump right to assigning writing on demand. So we want a big takeaway here is that this low stakes, the little short runs are really, really important for helping our students become expert writers who can write for short purposes and longer purposes. So we're going to talk about how writing into the day in notebooks, just routine argument writing in notebooks can build fluency and stamina and also community. If you add talking to this reading and writing in notebooks, then that helps to build a classroom community and a culture of respect. So 2 things we're going to talk about today. There's lots of different things you can do in notebooks. Today we're going to talk about would you rather, play around with that, and then something called say, mean, matter. Now eventually in later professional learning sessions, we're going to talk about how the notebook writing can layer to build up to longer arguments. But for today, we're just going to talk about some little short runs, so to speak, that can help build students up to these longer runs. So let's just jump right in, would you rather? You can Google for these. You can find lots of would you rathers on the internet. All you have to do is put in your little search engine, would you rather, and you might add writing exercises or something like that. But here's one. Would you rather be able to find anything that was lost, or every time you touch someone, they would be unable to lie? And what I like to do is have students in their response state their choice, or basically what you're asking them to do is make a claim or state an opinion or make an argument for which would be a better thing, why they think one would be better than the other. And so I like them, in addition to stating their choice, tell why. Why do you think this, why is this your choice? So I'm going to model this. Let me add a slide. And let me look at this. Would you rather be able to find anything that was lost, or every time you touch someone, they would be unable to lie? Find anything that's lost or touch someone and they can't lie. All right, so I've made my choice, anything that was lost, and I'm going to make a claim. It is better to be able to find things that are lost than to have the ability to touch someone and make them unable to. All right. So my reasons. Well, I kind of flip-flop. In my thinking, it was, I don't really want to always know if someone is lying, because that might hurt my feelings. It might make them feel awkward if I just ask them, do you like my shirt? And if they can't, tell a little fib and say, yes, I love your shirt, then that might make them uncomfortable. It might make me uncomfortable to know what they thought about my shirt. And so there's reasons why I didn't choose that one. The reasons that I chose the things that are lost, I'm thinking about the time. I spend a lot of time, so I'm going to say being able to find things that are lost saves me money, since I don't have to replace items. It also saves me time, because I waste a lot of time looking for items such as keys and my phone. Okay, so really it's simple as that. So I have made a claim. It's better to be able to find things that are lost. So here's my claim, and then I've given reasons why, 2 reasons why. I could also, once kids get really good at this, I might have them then say why they didn't choose the other one. And I sort of orally told you why I didn't choose the other one. But simple as that, okay? So would you rather? It's a writing into the day exercise that builds fluency, stamina, community. If I then turned and talked, let's say I wrote this and I turned and talked to a partner, or we had a quick table chat, about which one I chose, then I'm learning things about you and you're learning things about me. And it just builds that culture of community in the classroom, as well as a culture of writing and making arguments. So once kids get really good at this, and here's several, I just Googled for these and I just found them on the internet. Would you rather be able to control fire or water? Would you rather become 5 years older or 2 years younger? So you take a turn really quickly, and just below this video on your Canvas course is a link to a Padlet where you click on the link and you contribute your would you rather using one of these on the slide. So I will let you stop the video for a minute, go to that Padlet, type your would you rather, make your choice, and put your 2 reasons for why you chose it. Okay, so once students get, really good at this, they're able to make a claim or state an opinion and give a couple of reasons why, and you may want to have them also give a reason or two why they didn't choose the other. Once students have gotten fluent with that, then you want to always bump it up. So here's a way to bump up would you rather. You can connect it to text sources. So students would read some text for information. They would learn about a couple of different things through reading, and then they would have to use text-based information in their would you rather responses. So for example, here I just used experiential type information. I waste a lot of time. I would have to replace things. But here in this one, I would need to use some text-based information. So would you rather be Abraham Lincoln or George Washington? This would be after we had maybe done a little unit on the 2, and then I have to use things I learned in my research or from a certain text to back up my claim. Would you rather be a frog or a toad? Take that out. Would you rather be a frog or a toad? Would you rather it be spring or summer? So after having studied about spring and summer, why would you rather it be one and not the other? You can also link this to literary characters if you want to. So you're reading a book, and let's say you're reading The Outsiders. Would you rather be Pony Boy or Johnny? And you tell why. And of course, those reasons come from the text. So now let me play around with this. I'll model with this. But first I want to show you how you can bump it up by connecting to text sources, but you can also bump it up by connecting it to more of your standards or your skills. So for example, writing standard 1, write arguments to support claims with clear reasons and relevant evidence. And so once you do your claim and maybe acknowledge alternate or opposing claims, so I would rather be, while some people might choose to be George Washington, I would rather be Abraham Lincoln, because it could be argued that Washington was this, however, Lincoln was this, so I choose Lincoln. Okay, so you could do that. Also, this is the one I want to focus on today. Use words, phrases, and clauses to create cohesion. So here's where I want to bring in the sentence frames. Now, as an English teacher, I know that I need to teach some language skills, and here's one of them. So language standard 1 at some grade levels is use coordinating and subordinating conjunctions. So remember, I'm bumping up the would you rather by adding sources and sentence frames that go along with the skill that I have to teach, which is coordinating and subordinating conjunctions. So, when I was a classroom teacher, we always called the coordinating conjunctions the fanboys, for and, nor, but, or, yet, so, and then subordinating conjunctions are the awubis, and here are some words for subordinating conjunctions. It's not an exhaustive list, of course, there are many more. So let's I want to fold in sentence frames. Sentence frames, you can carefully choose which ones you offer to students based on skills you're teaching. So let's say I'm going with the Abraham Lincoln and George Washington. Let me just go ahead and start a slide. Abraham Lincoln and George Washington. Here's my would you rather, remember? So let me make a choice. Abraham Lincoln and George Washington. So here are things I know about them. I know that George Washington and Abraham Lincoln both were presidents. That's good. I might want to be the president. I know that one of them, Lincoln, was assassinated and Washington died happily at Mount Vernon. I know that they both had a lot of experience with wartime, and George Washington, it was the Revolutionary War when they were fighting England. That was a terrible time, but I would argue the Civil War, where it was family against family, brother against brother, that was probably a worse war to be presiding over. So I think I've made my choice, and I have chosen Washington over Lincoln. Now let me use these sentence frames to help me. So what sentence frames do, and remember it's one of the foundational practices of the C3WP, and what they do is help generate thought, and they help bump up my writing and make it more sophisticated. So I could do all those some people say. While it may be true that Abraham Lincoln, when you look at the facts, okay, let's see what I want to do. I can use while, which is a subordinating conjunction, although is subordinating, but is coordinating, yet is coordinating. Okay. So these have given me some things, although Abraham Lincoln was a fine and noble president, I would prefer George Washington. So I've made my claim, I've stated my opinion. Now let me expand on this. You know, I like to give 2 reasons. Not many people know this, and I could come up with something that not many people know. Well, maybe not many people know that he retired, you know, lived retired happily at Mount Vernon. He also freed his slaves before he died. Not many people know that. Therefore, it is clear that, okay, so let's say, okay, that has helped me to think. I would prefer to have been George Washington. Washington. Ended his life happily at Vernon. On the other hand, that's a sentence stem. On the other hand, Lincoln was assassinated. It's not a good way to die. Okay, this is something kids might say this, and they're giving their reasoning, their rationale. So let me come up with another reason, and I'll use my sentence frames. Another reason why, I'll just go with that. Another reason why would prefer to have been Washington is that he freed his slaves before he died. I could have said not many people know this. So what we've just done is we've gone from this, would you rather be able to control fire or water? Kids get really good at that. They build up their fluency and their speed and stamina for that. Then you bump it up a notch by connecting it to text sources and by connecting it to some skills and standards through sentence frames. Okay, so that's a way that you use sentence frames. Now, I just did that. I tried it out using Abraham Lincoln or George Washington. I used some things I knew from my research and reading. I told reasons why and why not, and I used coordinating and subordinating conjunctions. Now, just below this video on the Canvas page is another link to a Padlet where you can go in, just click the Padlet link and write your would you rather be Abraham Lincoln or George Washington. So you play around with it. Stop the video and play around with writing this bumped up would you rather. Okay, now that you've done that, let's think about a notebook can be like, here's my notebook, and I just like to write things in my notebook. Some teachers like for their students to have like that physical writer's notebook, and they can just flip through it and they can quickly assess the writing, not grade it, but assess it to see which skills students are taking up. Other teachers like to have a digital notebook, like a Padlet. So like you can just look at a glance. If kids are doing this in a Padlet, you can just at a glance tell which students are picking up which skills and which students need you to do another mini lesson or some small group or one-on-one instruction. So now we're going to move on to the say, mean, matter. This is another thing you can do in notebooks, whether a physical notebook or a digital notebook. And this is, you may have heard of say, mean, matter. I'm going to show you how you can really kick it up and bump up the writing. So say, mean, matter is based on a quote. So what did someone say? What does that mean? What did the person mean? And why does it matter? What's the significance of it? What might that lead to? Or if we don't do what this person advises, what might not doing it lead to? So let's just play with this one. Babe Ruth, who was he had the home run record of a famous baseball player. And here's something he said: never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. All right. So what we're going to do is play around with this quote, never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. And we're going to signal the quote using a signal phrase. So let me just model that just out loud for you. Babe Ruth claims, Babe Ruth insists, Babe Ruth suggests, in Babe Ruth's view. So let's just try this. In Babe Ruth's view, I have an example here. In Babe Ruth's view, a person should never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. That's what he said. So that's the say. Okay, let's go back to our chart. These commentary stems at the top are good for saying what that means. So this suggests, or this implies, or you can even say, this means. Okay, or this demonstrates. These frames or these stems help us to think of, why does it matter? Why does that matter? What's the significance of that quote? So here's one that I have done for you. I did it ahead of time just for the sake of time here, but remember, it's really important to do as I did with the George Washington and Abe Lincoln and with the telling a lie or finding something that's lost, it's really important to write in front of the students and think aloud as you do that writing. But I did this one ahead of time. In Babe Ruth's view, a person should never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. This suggests that people who aren't willing to take a risk will never get good at doing something. And basically, that's what he's saying, right? If you're not willing to take the risk, if you have a fear of striking out, then you won't play the game. So I just said this suggests that people who aren't willing to take a risk will never get good at doing something. If you're not going to play the game, you're never going to get good at playing the game. And so why does that matter? Well, it matters. It's significant to our lives. This persuades us to not be afraid of failure in our quest to succeed. If everyone tried to avoid failure, there would be no successful people, baseball players or otherwise. So here we have say, here's what Babe Ruth said, mean, here's what it means, matter, here's why it matters. This sentence is why it matters to maybe to me personally, and this is how it matters, makes a difference to society. Okay, so say, mean, matter. That's another thing you can do in writer's notebooks. And before I give you your turn to do one in a Padlet, we're just going to jump ahead to how you can bump it up. Okay, so I have tons of say, mean, matters here. I mean, tons of say, the say part. And let me just tell you a little bit about how I got these. So I just put in a Google search famous quotes about education. So these are all about education, but you could do famous quotes about sacrifice, famous quotes about friendship, you know, just whatever. You can just build a repository of these. You can put one up and just let students jot in their notebooks. Just do a say, mean, matter in their notebooks, whether it's physical or a digital notebook. So these are all about education. None of us is as smart as all of us. Even the wisest mind has something yet to learn. So these are all famous people who said things, have famous quotes about education. So they're famous because of something, because they've done something. They're an authority on something, or they're a real credible source. So they have some credibility and some authority. And so we want to teach students, remember we're bumping up the say, mean, matter. So we want to teach students how to authorize, so tell why someone is an authority on something. And so we're going to play around today with 3 different authorizing frames for how you show someone's authority. So here's one: name, title, signal phrase, and the quote. Ian Weston, the name, Executive Director of the American Trauma Society, title. Signal phrase is just said. That's signaling that, hey, I, Robin Atwood, or I, the student, didn't say this. This is something that he said, Ian Weston said. And here's what he said: drones may become a realistic option. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Here's another way. You can start with the quote and then a signal phrase, the name, the title, the reason for the expertise. Okay, so this just starts with the quote. You see that here. The person's name and title and the reason for his expertise. Okay, and then here's another way to do it: name, title, a paraphrase, a partial quote, and a signal phrase. Okay. So I have put some more sophisticated. Remember, we're always bumping up. Some of these are what we saw on the Would You Rather, but as kids get really good and fluent with using signal phrases and commentary stems, bump it up, add more. So that's what I've done here. Got some of those. So then so you'll just notice that there's more here than on the previous slide. And I'm now have them all on one table. Now, a lot of times teachers ask me, well, how do kids know these sentence frames? Well, I strongly suggest that you put them on anchor charts in your classroom. You have them hanging on the wall so that kids see them all the time. And then they get that visual imprint of them and they're just there for them to use. And a lot of teachers also put them on bookmarkers. So there's a bookmarker that kids keep in their writer's notebook, or they should keep in a folder or keep with them in their desk, at their desk, so that kids always have ready access to these. I'm 55 years old. These help me be a better writer. So I'm going to choose one of these quotes that I got from the quotes about education. The important thing is not to stop questioning, Albert Einstein, or I could do the Ben Franklin one. Let me just do the Albert Einstein. So I'm going to go with this one. The important thing is to not stop questioning, is not to stop questioning. So let me choose one of these authorizing frames. If I choose this one, it would be Albert Einstein, a famous physicist, insist or suggest, or I could say, according to Albert Einstein, a famous physicist, and then do the quote. Okay. Or I could do the quote, a signal phrase, do this one. I'll just go with this one. It's simple. So Albert Einstein, get this out of the way. You will get your turn. Albert Einstein, famous physicist. Let me say insist. Insists. Must have done something wrong here. The important, no comma. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Okay. Now, I want to make a couple or three comments. I want to say what it means. I can use these stems for what it means and these stems for why it matters. Okay. This suggests that questioning, asking questions, is a key part of learning and growing. Knowing this will help us to understand that questioning is even for smart people, and that if we question, it does not mean we are not smart. Because sometimes people think that. I better not ask a question because people would think I'm not very smart. But Albert Einstein, as we know, was very smart, and he is saying questions are very important. So if we do not, I always like to say, what are the implications? If we continue to do this, this will happen. If we don't do this, this will happen. If we do not, if we stop asking questions, then we are in danger of never getting any new knowledge for ourselves or for society at large. I always like to encourage kids to say, okay, what is the significance both in your own life and for humanity, for the larger community? All right, so that is an example of say, mean, matter, bumping it up with authorizing frames, signal phrases, and commentary stems. So I've given you two examples. Would you rather, and we did it kind of an easy way, easing into it, and then we bumped it up. and then we did say, mean, matter, and we did it kind of an easy way, and then we bumped it up. So now that you have, oh, I forgot to give you your turn. Go into the Padlet, stop the video and go into the Padlet and try. You can choose either the Franklin quote or the Einstein quote and do your own say, mean, matter using, choose an authorizing frame, a signal phrase, and write, I'll challenge you to write at least 3 sentences of commentary. Okay, so now we're revisiting these questions that I posed at the very beginning of this. What is routine writing and why is it significant? Why should students write in response to something? And why should they write in a notebook? What are the benefits and purposes? Jot your responses to these questions in your notebook, whether you're using digital or a physical one, as I typically do. And take about 5 minutes to do your jotting and then talk at tables and then restart the video. Now, here's some logistical questions that I often get. Teachers will ask, well, how do I manage all of that? Let's say I'm doing it in a physical notebook. Well, some tips that I've gotten from teachers over the years, date the entries, and then students can always find them quickly. You can find them quickly. Like you can see, here's what the writing looked like in August, and now it's mid-September. Am I seeing growth? Are the students, are the argument skills growing? Are kids getting better with the sentence frames? Are they getting better with the authorizing frames? And then all writing could lead somewhere. You could say, all right, boys and girls, let's look back at the writing that we did about drones on September 12th. And now we are going to flesh that out. We've learned some new things about argument writing. So pull out your argument that you wrote and we're going to bump it up using these new skills. Sometimes teachers do like have kids leave a couple of pages blank at the beginning for a table of contents or some tabbing, like with those Post-it tabs that you can do. And then people will often ask, how do I give this a grade? Well, you need to always assess. So you as the teacher need to keep your eyes on the writing so that you know what your kids need from you, what they need you to teach them, what skills they need. But I wouldn't grade them unless it's for completion. So like if you want to take a daily grade or something and give them 5 points for their notebook entry, or however you want to do that. But I wouldn't really focus on the grading of it, but on the assessing of it. So how do you assess it to inform your practice in order to make them better writers? So that was 2 of the foundational practices and how you can merge them, writer's notebooks and sentence frames.